I have been speculating a ton about BioWare, the next Mass Effect, where the kind of legendary studio is at with all of the things going on at EA and all of the reprioritizations they have and so on. Well, today we got some interesting statements from a former BioWare developer. I am going to play those and then we're going to talk about it.
I think that BioWare going forward, they're going to do Mass Effect. I think there's a non-zero chance that BioWare is now the Mass Effect studio. If they do Mass Effect 5 and it's successful, there's no one really there that's going to push to make another Dragon Age. I don't think. It's mostly Mass Effect, old school Mass Effect leadership. So it might just be Mass Effect forever. There are some, within EA, there are some advantages to that. I think one of the problems that happened with Anthem is because there were other BioWare places for people to go, EA's general dislike of failure pushed them to push BioWare to pull people off and put them onto Dragon Age. Also, Dragon Age was one of them, so there was a pull as well. Whereas if you look at something like DICE, when Battlefield 4 launched, it was a bit of a disaster at launch, but there wasn't anywhere for people to go. You had to take them. You would have had to take them out of DICE completely, and so they got to work on it and fix it and clean it up and keep going. So there's something to be said for there being only one option. So I think that BioWare for the foreseeable future will be one project at a time. Now, EA these days is much more willing to move people within the organization as a whole. Like, there are BioWare people working on Skate, there are BioWare people working on Battlefield, there are BioWare people working on Iron Man, and some of them have transferred permanently, but I think there are still loners, and so that might change that calculus. But in the past, there were certainly advantages to just being one thing. There aren't enough people left the number of people left in BioWare Edmonton right now are not enough to make Mass Effect 5. They will either have to hire people in Edmonton or bring people on at other EA locations. I think COVID made EA more comfortable with people remote working, even though they don't like it. And so as a result, they are much more willing to loan people around than they were 5-6 years ago. Now, EA leadership wants everyone back in the studios. They don't think it works this way.
So that is Mark Darrah. He is a former developer, one of the kind of OGs at BioWare. I think he even reached the executive level at one point. And then he was still there as recently as last year when he helped them ship BioWare's most recent game, Dragon Age: The Veilguard. He was there as a consultant, but in videos since then, he's kind of given the impression he never really left, which I find kind of interesting. My assumption is he's no longer working with them. I believe he said that specifically, but I wouldn't be surprised if one day we find out he's helping consult on the next Mass Effect, but we'll have to wait and see. But everything he said is kind of, if you've listened to my other videos or my podcast, you'll know I've kind of been assuming a lot of these things, that there's a pretty good chance BioWare is a one-game studio now. He seems to confirm that, or at least agree. How much he really knows, we don't really know. He has been out of the circle for a bit now. The fact that they may just be a Mass Effect studio, at least for now, kind of makes sense. I didn't even think about how he kind of pointed out that, say they ship Mass Effect 5, hopefully it does well, but either way, at this point, there's not many people left from the Dragon Age franchise even employed there. So there wouldn't really be that big of a push by anyone internally to go back to Dragon Age, especially after the last game didn't do the best. Lots of reasons behind that, different video to make, but I found that interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. His whole statement about how it can be good to just be a one game studio under EA kind of makes sense. His example goes back to Battlefield 4. I would argue it even is as recent as Battlefield 2042 and maybe some other games that I'm not thinking of. But it's the whole idea that if you're working on multiple games in one studio, EA doesn't care who bounces around within their own studio. So when there were previous BioWare games, he mentions situations like Anthem and Dragon Age and things like that, where they had issues with people bouncing around teams who maybe didn't want to be on Anthem, which left Anthem in a bad position. They won't have that option, and that can be good in a way, so that everyone who's there is focused on one project, and that's what they do. Now he does mention later on in that clip about how COVID really kind of adjusted how things work. People are more able to switch around within EA, which we're now currently seeing. I found his statement about how some people were permanently moved to other teams, which we've heard before. We knew that. But I wasn't under the impression some of those people are still loners. I was under the impression basically everyone who got moved was permanent. So it seems like maybe their numbers aren't as taken down as they were, except that he also says they don't currently have enough developers at BioWare Edmonton, the only studio we really know of. I think Austin still technically exists. Maybe we haven't really heard anything, so I don't know. But the whole idea that they will at least need to hire to be able to do full production on Mass Effect 5 kind of rings true. I think we've all assumed that. And the idea that there could be co-developers is something I've talked a lot about. I really truly believe this next Battlefield game that they're working on, where they have 3 or 4 studios working on it, DICE and other studios. I believe it's Motive and a couple others. I can't remember off the top of my head. That's what I assume that it probably looks like for Mass Effect. I suspect we'll have BioWare, and I'm sure they're going to either way staff up a bit. Some of those loaned people will come back, and then I think it's really likely we'll see a Motive be assisting potentially other studios. We could see who knows, a Respawn or a Criterion or whoever. So I will say him saying all those things, even though he's not a direct source necessarily, he's not an EA representative at this point. He still knows things. He probably saw things in motion and very likely still talks to people. It's pretty validating for him to say a lot of that stuff. Not that I'm doing anything unique or really that interesting with talking about those things, but it kind of makes me feel good that maybe I kind of see where these things are going, and maybe that lends a little credibility to me. I will leave that up to you. This makes me feel better. Mark is a very straight to the point person. So when he's talking about this stuff, I assume it's in general what's happening. And from what I saw from the stream he did, there wasn't too much doom and gloom, and I suspect if things were not going well there, he would have been pretty willing to just say it. I'm sure if you asked him, he would probably say it's not great to lose all the people they've lost, and all of that, and if he was there, he probably wouldn't be too thrilled. But to me, it's something I've said over and over again. Any news is good news at this point. I've seen a lot of people kind of worried or doom and glooming about the end of BioWare and all this stuff. There's also a contingent of fans that this clip and maybe my own video is going to upset a contingent of people. Whether they're people who have been down on BioWare since Mass Effect 3, or who are big Dragon Age fans who are mad that their franchise is on life support at best right now, which is fair. I would be upset as well. To people who hate the Veilguard and Andromeda and Anthem and just, their only hobby is hating. I understand, to a point, at least some of those groups, why they would be upset. For me, I'm someone who doesn't want to see BioWare go anywhere. I just became a fan, so I would like to see them have some more longevity. I would like to see a return to greatness in some capacity. I'm not the type of person who thinks they need to be the old BioWare again, because that's not going to happen. That's not how these things work. It's not even a Ship of Theseus thing. They still have a ton of veteran devs there, whether people want to acknowledge that or not. For me, it's just, you know, the trilogy is really good and it still is to this day. But if you released it today, it wouldn't be received the same. The people who made that game, if you had that exact same team today at BioWare, may not be able to make a really good game in 2025. And I'm not talking about like woke stuff or culture stuff or all of that. The industry has just changed. The audience has changed. Even the fans that they catered to back then have changed. They've gotten older, and their preferences have changed and things like that. My hope for BioWare isn't necessarily to return to their former glory, but to find a new glory, to find a new way to make games and a new way to do what they do that is sustainable in 2025, or, more realistically, 28 or 29 when this game comes out. Yes, it pains me to admit that, that one guy who speculates about stuff all the time will probably end up being right. But at the time, I still think I was right. Regardless, I think this was interesting. I think it was worth making a quick little video about. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know how you're feeling about everything. I'm excited. I think this year's N7 Day is likely going to be a pretty big one. I suspect after last year it being nothing essentially, and them having the last year or so to really buckle back down into this franchise and for this next game, I suspect they're going to have a lot to show us and tease us. Mike Gamble is going to be going nuts on Twitter or whatever social media he's on, and I'm excited for it. So I hate to look too far ahead. It's only July of 2025. It's 4 months until November. That comes quick, especially as the summer wraps up. So if you want all of the Mass Effect news and speculation, everything that's coming up, please consider subscribing to this channel. Hit the like button if you want more people to see this video. I certainly do. If you want to really support what I'm doing here and get videos like this one just a bit early, as well as a bunch of other perks, consider becoming a YouTube member. If you want to see all of the other content I make or see other ways to support what I'm doing, check out the links in the video description. That is all I have for this one. So until next time.